Russia is trying to buy time to continue the war in Ukraine. If Russia continues to put forward unrealistic conditions and undermine progress, there must be harsh consequences. Kiev is ready to negotiate. Volodymyr Zelensky accused Russia of trying to buy time after Donald Trump said progress had been made on a ceasefire in a phone call with Vladimir Putin.
Ceasefire talks between Russia and Ukraine would begin immediately.
Trump said in separate phone calls with Zelensky and Putin on Monday that ceasefire talks between Russia and Ukraine would begin immediately.
We are ready to work on a memorandum on a possible future peace agreement.
Putin said he was ready to work on a memorandum on a possible future peace agreement, but did not respond to calls for a 30-day halt to hostilities. Russian Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Maria Zakharova said on Tuesday that Kiev had the authority to make a decision and respond to the proposed peace memorandum. However, the Kremlin downplayed claims that talks were imminent.
There is no deadline, and there can be no deadline.
Russian state news agencies quoted spokesman Dmitry Peskov as saying there is no deadline and there can be no deadline. Meanwhile, Zelensky has launched a new round of diplomacy aimed at bolstering support by meeting with Western allies. Ukraine is working with partners to pressure Moscow to force the Russians to change their behavior. Zelensky said on social media after a phone call with the Finnish president that Ukraine was working with partners to pressure Moscow to force the Russians to change their behavior. It comes after the European Union and Britain announced new sanctions against Russia. The EU said it had blacklisted about 200 more oil tankers from Russia's shadow fleet and warned of a tougher response if Moscow did not accept a ceasefire in Ukraine. The UK imposed sanctions on 18 more tankers as part of a package of sanctions targeting Russian military suppliers, energy exporters, and financial institutions.
Kiev authorities described the record-breaking drone strikes in Ukraine over the weekend as the biggest since the start of the full-scale invasion. Trump said on Monday that he would not join new sanctions on Russia, saying they could hinder recent progress.
Heavy fighting broke out along the front lines after Ukraine reported 177 clashes in 24 hours, killing more than 1,000 Russian soldiers. German Defense Minister Boris Pistorius said Tuesday ahead of a meeting of EU ministers that Russia's ongoing attacks speak louder than we have heard in a long time. Putin is clearly playing for time. Unfortunately, we have to say that he is not really interested in peace, he said. Putin has so far rejected a 30-day US-Ukrainian ceasefire proposal, and last week rejected Zelensky's invitation to meet in Istanbul for talks.
Trump had offered to join the talks if Putin was there, but the Russian leader declined.
The Kremlin has previously declared temporary ceasefires, including from May 8th to 11th to coincide with Russia's celebrations of victory in World War II. Kiev has refused to participate on the grounds of insecurity, and has demanded an immediate and sustained cessation of hostilities. A similar 30-hour ceasefire was declared over Easter. However, the sides have accused each other of hundreds of violations, and the fighting has briefly stopped. Russia and Ukraine have been at war since Moscow launched a full-scale invasion of Ukraine in February 2022. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, who met with President Recep Tayyip Erdoğan at the presidential complex in Ankara, held a press conference at the Ukrainian embassy. Zelensky began his speech by thanking President Erdoğan and his delegation, saying, "I would like to thank the people of the Republic of Turkey for their support for Ukraine's territorial integrity and sovereignty." This was once again confirmed by President Erdoğan during our meeting today, and this ongoing support, the signals that Crimea belongs to Ukraine, was very important to me. This was also a beautiful symbol of our personal friendship and political support for each other.